Hello, fellow humans. My name is Vlad Bunea, and this is Economy for Life. Today, we will talk about the lived experience of degrowth. I was inspired by one of the subscribers to the channel, shout out to Echo Andre, I hope you are doing well, brother, to talk about what degrowth would actually look and feel in practice once it is implemented. After having read a lot of theory and considering that I live relatively close to a degrowth ideal, I would like to share with you my impression of how I think degrowth will look in practice. To begin with, I'd like to share with you a number of resources that have shaped my theoretical thinking. There are already many books and articles that talk about degrowth. A few that come to mind are Exploring Degrowth, Degrowth in Movements, Less is More, The Future is Degrowth, Slow Down, A Degrowth Manifesto, Slow Down or Die, The Economics of Degrowth, Dialogues for Degrowth, The Gruyer's Handbook of Degrowth, Routledge Handbook of Degrowth, Anthropause, The Beauty of Degrowth, and many more that you can find here. There's also the Sufficiency and Wellbeing magazine, which we launched in April last year to talk about degrowth, sufficiency, and well-being in a non-academic and less sophisticated way. At the magazine, we defined degrowth as an expansion of social agency and well-being for all humans within the limits of Earth through a selective reduction of production and consumption to lighten ecological footprint, planned democratically in the spirit of social justice. This definition has a lot in it. Each word has a wide context and much thinking behind it. But there are over 100 definitions of degrowth. Ours is not the only one. What I mean by our definition is that degrowth is about the shrinking of the economy away from waste and excess and towards the liberation of humans and community. This liberation is material and emotional. I like to touch on the idea of the lived experience of degrowth in 5 categories: the liberation of time, the sufficiency of energy and materials, no more capitalism, a variety of experiences depending on the location on Earth, and unchained imagination. During a degrowth transition and after it is completed, we will not have to work to produce so much useless stuff, and we will be liberated from the time spent in the production of those things. The list is very long, and it includes private jets, SUVs, single-use trashy things you can find on Temu and Amazon, fast fashion, unhealthy super-processed food, and much more. As Stan Cox told me in a recent interview, just as much of what is now paid work may become unpaid, some currently unpaid work may become paid to redress the unfair distribution of paid and unpaid work time. More equitable allocation both between the sexes and among racial and ethnic groups will be especially important. There are activities that are enormously important for society, such as the care that is provided by health professionals and family members. These activities, which should count as work, are currently unpaid or severely underpaid, while harmful or useless activities such as the advertising industry or investment banking are hugely overpaid. The liberation of time will unlock the possibility to pursue paid work that matches almost perfectly our natural talents. It can be about creativity. It can be about providing care to others. It can be about being engaged in the community. It can be being really involved in the preservation of the environment. It can mean much more time to ourselves as individuals to really explore our natural potential to thrive as people. Having more time to ourselves outside the pressure to have a job that is not socially useful can really change us as human beings in ways which we have never experienced before. We will no longer have to sell our time to some capitalist just to survive in a rat race that does not actually make us happier. While we will have more time to ourselves, This will be linked to needing and using much less energy and materials that we use today. Our environmental crisis comes from a production crisis. We use too much energy and too many resources to create an economy that is wasteful and unjust. To live with sufficiency would mean a kind of lifestyle that is comparable to the material lifestyle of roughly 40% of humans that have incomes in the range of 700 to 6,000 euros per person per year. This may be shocking, but there's a subtle difference. This is sufficiency as it is defined today, when 29% of humans consume too much. If that overconsumption stops, it will make available a lot of energy and resources. We can improve the quality of life for everyone while using just enough energy and materials. This involves a lot of public and shared services, such as transportation. The era of personal cars must end. Personal cars represent an ethic of individualism and waste. They are not in reality an ethic of freedom, where we get stuck in traffic and cause so much pollution. Imagine the Star Trek world where everybody is equal in terms of lifestyle because energy is virtually unlimited. Nobody has a personal car in Star Trek. Nobody needs it. Everybody can move around in an instant. We can have fantastic high-tech public transportation to get around. It does not have to be instantaneous. There can be a lot of joy in taking the train too, if it's comfortable. It does not even have to be super fast, because we will have much more time at our disposal. We can find the joy of slow travel, in which we can truly connect with each other and not be mad at each other in traffic or crowded buses and trains. A lived experience of degrowth means living in a system that is very different from the capitalist experience and also different from the socialist experiences of the 20th century. From a practical perspective, I suggested that the essence of capitalism are the causal principles that link property, power, and capital. When these forces are phased out, our experience of the economy will feel like a very inclusive economy with very, very low inequalities in income and wealth, with a very careful relation to natural resources, with careful attention to having democratic government in the workplace, with placing care at the center of economic and social relations. Since degrowth is a transition period, not the end goal, this transition will also feel like a political revolution in the sense that traditional structures of power and domination, such as unelected hierarchies at the workplace and unelected hierarchies in public institutions, will begin to be dismantled and replaced. The degrowth transition is expected to trigger very strong resistance from the status quo. Since capitalism operates with addiction to power and wealth, a lot of super rich humans will behave like they are in an intensive treatment for drug addiction. That will be part of the healing process for all of us as a society to go through this treatment for addiction. Yes, for some, it will be painful. When you read books about degrowth, you will encounter a lot of references to how unequal the rich countries are from the poor countries. It is often argued that the wealth of the rich countries, also known as the global north, has been accumulated to a very large extent on a history of colonialism and imperialism. In modern times, this is also called unequal exchange, which refers to the fact that while the global north sends financial aid to the global south, it also takes from the global south much more in terms of cheap labor, cheap energy, cheap resources, and profits in general. Degrowth will break this tradition of domination. A degrowth experience in the global north would feel like, for example, cooperative housing in Barcelona, where people share the ownership of a building, have communal spaces for socializing, cooking, cleaning, use much less energy than traditional housing, and have much more time to build relationships. In the global south, degrowth would feel like a liberation from dependency in a process that is called delinking. Much of the global south will need to grow economically to such a level that it reaches a decent standard of living while not using a lot of material resources. The global south will no longer have to import advanced, expensive technologies from the global north because they will now be able to develop their own. At the same time, the global south will not have to desire the same level of affluence that the global north experiences today. In this sense, the south will also degrow their desires because the overconsumption and overproduction demanded by the rich countries today is not sustainable for any country, regardless of their level of development. What is particularly oppressive about capitalism is that it has locked us in a pattern of thinking and imagination in which we can hardly imagine life under a different economic system. We have to resort to science fiction to have a glimpse of positive alternatives. We have to look at solar punk memes. Undoing capitalism with the degrowth transition unchains our imagination. Examples such as the housing cooperative in Barcelona are only the beginning of this process. If we won't have to think in terms of, I need a job I don't like in order to live, then we will have time to think about the possibilities we can explore. Nobody can tell us exactly how that would look like. What if we replace the addiction to social media platforms, smartphones and gadgets, online fame and material status with a much deeper emotional awakening that would free us from anxieties? This emotional awakening would be very in tune with our biological nature as social beings, which no technology has been able to deprogram from our genes. Meaningful social relations do not need an intensive use of material resources. I grew up in a time where games made of paper and wood were much more stimulating for our development than digital screens that only offer the illusion of spatial depth. Even technology itself needs to be unchained so it serves our personal development and not profit making for their owners. Freedom really matters when it comes with justice for everyone, not just the few. I use the words economy for life because I want to talk about the different kind of economy that is both post-capitalist and anti-capitalist. At the same time, I did not want to lead with words such as socialism, eco-socialism, communism, or more technical terms such as degrowth or steady-state economy. I wanted to have a very safe and friendly quick answer to the question, what do you propose as alternative to capitalism? My answer is economy for life. Of course, with this answer, I refer to versions of eco-socialism and degrowth as the transition to eco-socialism. The economy for life is an economy based on sufficiency and well-being. For my own comfort, I use economy for life also to refer to all living systems on Earth, including non-human life. I believe all economic systems that would replace capitalism must consider the preservation of life on the planet in all its diversity. To get to an economy for life, we would use the instruments of degrowth. There are many more questions to unpack, such as what is the role of money under degrowth? If we won't be motivated to accumulate wealth, how do we reward competence and advanced skills? If the profit motive disappears, what would motivate anyone to start a business? Stay tuned as we will explore all these questions and more in future videos. Thank you for supporting my research on Ko-fi and Patreon. Please like and subscribe for the algorithm. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Help us replace capitalism with an economy for life. And of course, increase the peace.